republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Guns, self-defense, concealed carry. This is the Patriot Defense Podcast. From the war room in Idaho's high desert, here's your host, Todd Echols.
And I am back. Once again, I'm tucked away in the war room somewhere in the high desert of southern Idaho. And it's good to be back. It's not Saturday evening, but it is actually Sunday afternoon. And I am here by myself today. Everyone else had to work, but it's okay. I don't mind doing these by myself. Try to be a little bit more organized, and let's just get into it, and we will see what happens. I'll start off by just some small talk, some small business type stuff. I will say that I am pretty excited because I have my behind closed doors class coming up. I believe it's on September 25th. I'd have to double check that date, but I believe it's September 25th. And I tell you what, that class went from being nobody signing up for it to like booked up, man. I'm almost booked up on that class. Just waiting on a couple answers from a few more people, so I'm pretty excited about that. Once again, that behind closed doors class is the class that talks about, we talk about the basic NRA way of shooting, and we talk about all the tweaks you can make to shoot faster, shoot more accurate. It's kind of like more of like an advanced style type class. Once you know the basics, you can come back and learn this. This is stuff that we don't teach you in your concealed carry permit class. The stuff that is the good stuff, the meat of it's the good stuff, the top secret squirrel stuff, man. That's what we're going to talk about in that class. And I can't wait to get with those people that have signed up, those students. And it's gonna blow their minds. It's gonna open their eyes to everything else that's out there, not just to stand there in a static position and shoot and be bored to death. Although that stuff is important. You have to crawl before you can walk and walk before you can run. And I will say, too, that I have been filling up my classes. My phone has started ringing again, and it feels so good. I think it's just because kids are back in school. We're in the middle of the fair right now, but I have a lot of people calling up, getting signed up for private classes and just all kinds of stuff. And it's nice. It's nice to be busy again, folks. It's nice to be busy again. I don't have to be I won't have to be a scrapper now and go out and roust up odd jobs. My wife's not going to look at me funny, and I'm going to be able to go back inside the house and sleep. I'm not going to be banished to the war room, right? If I'm being productive and I can fill classes, things are good. Because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So don't tell my wife I said that. I love my wife. She's good to me, but anyhow, I got to pull my weight around here as well. I always got to touch on this, right? I always talk about my women's classes. I really love the women in those classes. We have a great time. And I introduced some new drills at Thursday's class. And what it is a lot of these women in there, they're pretty new shooters, so they're just learning this stuff. And they have got to a point where we've got all the way up to how, to drawing and firing a gun. Now, they're not super, slick at that yet, but we're learning, or they're learning. And occasionally we have to step back just a little bit, and we have to jump back on the fundamentals again. And so that's what we did in my Thursday's class. We jumped back in on the fundamentals, and we started concentrating on the trigger press. And now I told them, I said, hey, look, I've noticed in a few classes that trigger press is kind of, we were back to jerking the trigger again. And we need to remember, just because we're learning new stuff, you always have to remember the basic fundamentals. Without the core principles, right? Those core principles, you can't shoot. You have to remember those core principles. And so we have we went back to it. And I had some cool new drills, and we talked about we played that we used to do trigger to work on trigger press, and we talked about trigger reset. And anyhow, I'll tell you what, if you want to check out those drills, they aren't up yet, but they will be up soon. I have just started I told you I'd do it. It's only took me, forever, but I just put together a Patreon account. So if you want to be a Patreon, it's going to cost you, I think I got it set up there. It's like $5 a month. That's all it is. $5 a month. $5 a month. And you can piss off Nancy Pelosi, right? You can get a little extra. And so what we're going to have on there for $5 a month on the Patreon account is I'm going to put some instructional videos out every month, probably a couple a month, maybe like one every 2 weeks. And if I want to do some extra stuff on there, I sure will. But those instructional videos, they may be drills. They may be, hey, let's revisit our grip. Let's revisit our trigger press. Let's revisit our stance, all that kind of stuff. So those are going to be on there. And, there's no telling what's going to pop up on there, but I won't forget about the Patreons. I will get something up there every month. Also, there's going to be some extra podcasts. So they're going to be podcasts that if there's something pressing I really want to dive into and I really want to talk about, that's what that I don't feel like I can really get into on the regular podcast. That's what's going to be on there. I'm calling it the Patreon after. I wrote it down here. The Patreon after show, or Patreon after hours show. And so you may hear some rants from me. You may hear just me talking about just about anything. And it's mostly going to be about firearms and stuff like that. But I mean, it could be just about anything. So if you love listening to my nice, sexy, sultry voice, and that's why you tune in, make sure you sign up to be a Patreon. For just $5 a month, you can sign up to be a Patreon, and you can get more podcasts from me and some instructional videos from me. You can log on, you can check out the videos, and you can see the face behind the podcast. You may look once, you may look twice, but you will never look back 3 times. You will look away, but there'll be some good info in there. And so if you can put up with my ugly mug, I'll get lots of good info to you. And I just want to say, I hate asking for money. I know people said not to worry about it, but I don't like asking for money, and that's really not what I'm doing. I want to give you something in return for your $5 a month, right? $5 a month isn't a lot, but if I get a handful of people doing that, it helps me pay for some stuff here. So the podcast, like I said, is not free. I mentioned it before. I mean, it was free for you guys, but it's not free to produce. I have a bandwidth, a place that supplies bandwidth that I've got to pay for every month. I've got equipment. I've got internet. I've got, all kinds of stuff. And the money that comes in from the Patreon is going to go to help support that. It may buy me better mics. It may allow me to make more videos. And maybe, right now I'm making the videos off my iPhone. So maybe those Patreon money could help go into getting a better setup to make better videos. It could help out with anything and everything, and I do appreciate the support. So if you find value from my podcast and you'd like a little bit more, I will put the Patreon link. I will put the Patreon link in my description for the podcast. You can go check it out. If you feel that it's for you, you can go ahead and sign up. Now, when you sign up, there's already a couple of videos up there, and I will hopefully get this another podcast that I just did before this one up there as well. I just kind of figure out how to get it on there so you guys can listen to it, just the Patreon. So check it out. I sure would appreciate it. Once again, it's a good way to make Nancy Pelosi cry. $5 isn't much. $5 a month isn't much. Maybe skip out on that Red Bull. Maybe skip out on that energy drink or that expensive coffee, right? You're not buying ammo right now because it's expensive and hard to find. So you got a few dollars laying around. Go ahead and sign up. That would be much appreciated. I really would, and I will do my best to make good on everything and give you guys some good information, good videos, good podcasts, extra podcasts, and listen to me ramble. That's enough of that. I'm going to quit rambling. I'm looking at my notes here. I did make notes. So there was an interesting news story that came out. I don't know if it was midweek or end of the week. I just saw it a few days ago, and I've had multiple people send me this, and it's about something called the Dream Keeper Fellowship. And we are going to take a listen. That they're talking about down in San Francisco. If you don't commit crime, if you don't shoot at people, they're going to pay you. They're going to pay you not to shoot at people. So I got a few different clips. This podcast is going to be a little clip heavy, and I'm sorry for that, but it is going to be a little clip heavy. The first clip is by the Young Turks, and they'll talk about it and explain it and go into it, and I might let it play on for just a few minutes. But they're going to talk about the ins and the outs of it, and then kind of some of them are actually kind of leaning toward this isn't such a bad idea. And then we'll get into another clip later on where the guy thinks a little differently. So here we go. I will fire this clip up from the Young Turks, and we're going to learn and hear all about the new Dream Keeper Fellowship program.
So the city of San Francisco, maybe you wouldn't be surprised if they're the ones doing this, but they're launching a new pilot program that's looking to curb violence. And now the way we usually approach curbing violence in America is imprisoning people, just racking up as many people as possible, throwing them in jail, and then, hoping that they get better. Actually, not even that part. Anyways, the city of San Francisco is now launching a different kind of program that will effectively pay people to not shoot each other. Do we think this will work? Let's look into some of the details. The program will be called the Dream Keeper Fellowship, and likely, I don't like this part, it may be dubbed the cash for criminals in the media, because they will pay certain people $300 a month to avoid gun incidents.
Because the Cash for Clunker program was awesome. So let's just name this one the Cash for Criminals.
So this is how it's going to work, you guys. The idea is born from a San Francisco Police Department data showing that more than half of all San Francisco gun killings involve the same 12 criminal groups and gangs. The idea is to target those at high risk of being on either end of a shooting with a $300 monthly payment. Subjects could then receive up to $200 extra for other certain milestones like getting a job.
So if they know there's 12 main groups that are causing all the gun crime there, why don't we enforce some laws? Because I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to have guns in San Francisco. That's pretty much a gun-free area, a gun-free zone. Am I right? No one's supposed to have guns there? Or very few people are supposed to have guns there? Well, if they're committing gun crimes, they're already breaking law. How about we enforce those laws instead of paying them to obey those laws? It's an interesting concept.
Interview, complying with probation conditions, or participating in a mentoring program in what's sure to be a highly controversial intervention system here. So I think they're looking to start this in October. Let's continue on. The fellowship is slated to launch as a small pilot program in October. There will be only 10 participants at first, which would ramp up to 30 by the end of the year. And if it's successful, it would eventually ramp up to as many as 200 to 300 participants. San Francisco Police Department would decide whom to offer enrollment to based on ongoing analysis of crime stats. So, they have some thoughts about how it's going to work, and hopefully this will happen in that way. And there's research that said that there's all these gun crimes come from these certain groups. So if you've done all this crime analysis, this is just my thought on it. If you've done all this crime analysis and you've whittled it down to a certain large percentage of the violent shootings that are happening in your city or with certain groups, and jailing them and going about our way we've always done this isn't necessarily working, I'm not that opposed to trying something different here. Because this is the thing. This is taking what could potentially cause crime and addressing it.
No. This is the thing. They're not supposed to have guns. They're criminals. They're not supposed to have guns. Let's enforce the laws. If we enforce the laws, we're not going to have to pay them we're not going to have to pay them to not break the laws.
In some cases, many times, as we earlier in the same show today, we talked about Tucker Carlson said people who don't want to wear masks or get vaccinated, they are now they're working out of acts of desperation by breaking the law in order to do things like create fake vaccine cards or buy them online and try and use them when you travel over to Hawaii, which we heard a story about that too. These are other acts of desperation, in my opinion. People grow up in certain situations. People end up in certain situations where there's a criminal lifestyle there, or then the cycle of crime and violence continues over and over and over again. Everyone's heard about this. The thing that we detach ourselves from is seeing that they're not human beings anymore. So once someone is in this cycle of crime or even in a gang or organization where crime happens, and a lot of times murders happen, they're just in it. How are you going to get out without any kind of way out?
So he's saying that these are acts of desperation. These criminals are acting out in acts of desperation. They are shooting other people because of acts of desperation. Here, let's lay it all out. We all have a choice. We've all have a choice. We make choices in our lives, right? You make choices to go sell the dope. You make choices not to sell the dope. You make choices to drop out of school. You make choices to stay in school. You make a choice to shoot someone. You make a choice not to shoot someone. You make a choice to do better with your life, to go out and get educated, to do better than the way you were raised, right? And I understand that some people come from these areas that are, this, I don't know, slums or what you want to call them, right? They live in these poverty-stricken areas, but you make a choice to stay there. You can do better. Life is all about choices.
This could potentially be a way out.
Yeah. So I'm really conflicted about this because I have still my old conservative vengeance streak. And I talk about it from time to time, especially in law enforcement stuff, because I'm an enormous believer in justice. Part of the reason why I named the progressive wing of the Democratic Party Justice Democrats, both economic justice, social justice, but also justice for victims of crime. And that's why I worked in a couple of prosecutors' offices just in the summers, et cetera. But and sometimes it does slip into vengeance, and that's not a good thing. I know that. And so when we see this program, and you see, hey, you're going to pay a couple $100 not to shoot people. I think, well, I'm not shooting anybody. Do I get a couple $100? Okay. And then I think, do I have to shoot someone first to get a couple $100 to not shoot them later? Right. And so I get the instinctual reaction to this program, a negative one. And I get that it bothers a lot of people because it bothers me. And it reminds me of Norway, as Trump would say. And they are they concentrate a lot on rehabilitation. In America, we've basically given up on that concept. This is a pilot program.
So they want to reward people for not committing crimes. I think the reward for not committing a crime is that you're not going to go to prison, that you're not going to get in trouble by the law. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. They don't enforce those laws, so this doesn't count. So let's just go ahead and give them money.
To push in that direction just a smidge. And so their system is very lax compared to what we're used to in America. In America, for example, prison rape is perfectly normal. They think, oh, why would we ever protect anyone? They're already in prison. You do anything you want to them, kill them, rape them, we'll just look the other way. It's insane, right? It's barbaric. In Norway, the Breivik, the mass murderer there, was complaining that he had, I think, a PS3 and he wanted a PS4. And he didn't have the latest video games there. And they took that as a legitimate complaint that they had to then adjudicate, right? So it's a very different system. But then the other side of it, so where's the question? Well, the question is, it turns out, damn it, that works. And so Norway's recidivism rate is so much lower than ours. You know what that means? So that means the people who committed crimes and then were rehabilitated don't commit more crimes, in which case there's less victims of crime that we have to seek justice for. So that's a great thing that there's less crime. So it worked in Norway. How about here? Well, now this is a pilot program that JR just explained to you, but it turns out they already tried it in 2 other cities in California, Richmond and Stockton. And now let me give you the results of that. It led to 55% fewer deaths and hospital visits. Damn, that's pretty good. And 43% fewer gun crimes. Well, that's what we're trying to prevent, gun crimes and deaths and hospital visits. So they're 2 for 2. It worked in those 2 cities. Well, then I hope if you're a progressive, facts matter to you. I know for the right wing, they're going to say, no, my emotions bother me too much. Even if it means less people get killed, I still don't want to do it because it bothers me that we're giving these guys money, right? But you should know one other thing about the program. Richmond program veteran Levon Carter Jr. said on The Daily Show, of all places, he said, the money is just a bait. They just throw out there to reel you in. You've got to complete the goals that they set up. When you get in, they start to teach you real values that nobody in your life taught you before. So when he frames it that way, I was like, well, that's pretty good. I like incentives and disincentives. You bring people in and then you teach them the right way, and that's why crime goes down. And given those facts, I vote for less crime.
So, You hear that last little phrase right there. You bring them in with the money, then you can teach them the values and the stuff that they didn't learn, and the values that it's not all right to kill someone. It's not all right to sell drugs. It's not all right to rape people. That sounds all, I don't know. You can just tell this is coming from the left. You can tell, obviously, San Francisco, right? You can tell this is coming from the Democrats. This is all, puppies and rainbows and lollipops. It's really, soft unicorn type thinking. This is what this is, right? Don't commit the crimes. We know crimes are bad. Is this another way for them to take your tax dollars and funnel your tax dollars back to criminals, saying don't shoot people. Be a good boy, and we'll give you $300, and we'll give you $200, and they are funneling your money back to criminals? Is that a way of buying votes? So those criminals and those people that do those things will turn around and say, "Oh, look who gave me some money. I'm going to vote for them." I mean, are they buying votes? Is this how this is working? I'm really torn because you have those numbers. You don't know if the guy said that hospital visits and emergency room visits and all this stuff was down, but you don't know. I mean, how true is that, right? Let's dig into the nitty gritty. We need the nitty gritty. We need the numbers. We need to know exactly what makes up those numbers and why, right? Because here's the bottom of it. The nuts and bolts of it is we need to enforce the laws that we already have. We need to enforce the laws that we already have, and we wouldn't have to do this because there'd be punishment. So you can raise a kid a couple different ways, right? When they do good, you can reward them, right? But you can also, teach them by, if you do something bad, if you touch the fence or you hit your brother or whatever, the fence is going to shock you and you're going to go to your room and get a spanking, right? And so there's two different ways to do this. And I just think with hardened criminals, with people that are shooting people, we need to enforce the laws, not reward them for not breaking the laws. Enforce the laws, and if you would have enforced the laws at the get-go, we wouldn't have got here to begin with.
Brett.
Right. Yeah, so that Costa piece at the Daily Show, that is a really informative piece that takes you pretty much step by step through all the Northern California pilot programs. A couple things for this are like, yes, it is giving money to criminals, and I went on. It is a roller coaster because you're just thinking to yourself, all those same thoughts I had. One, I remind myself that it is a pilot program. This is trying stuff, and trying stuff is good. Whenever I wonder whether something's too expensive, I always Google weird things that taxpayer money has paid for. And I found an article from the Motley Fool that says that they spent at Johns Hopkins, they used taxpayer money to spend $592,000 to study why chimpanzees throw poop.
I'm sorry. I can't listen to this anymore. I honestly can't listen to this anymore. I really can't. I know it goes on. I'll summarize a little bit. It goes back to the first gentleman. I don't even know his name. First gentleman who opened up this whole audio clip with him jumping in and saying, here's what it is that, criminals are going to get, they're going to pay the criminals not to shoot people, not to commit these crimes. And then what are they going to do? They're going to say, hey, look, I got $300. And they're going to go ahead and they're going to put that back into the economy, right? And that's going to be good for the economy. It's going to be good for the vendors and the stores and the community. Here's what it is. That's our money. That's our money. That's our tax dollars. Do you want our tax dollars spent like this? Do you want our tax dollars spent like this? I don't know that I do. I mean, I want a lot of this, I would love crime to go down. I'd love low crime. In fact, I heard that instead of, and I couldn't find the article. This is something that we talked about on the radio show. I couldn't find the article, the clip that it came out of, but they said that they are starting to not use gun control as much and starting to say, wow, what is it? Instead of using the term gun control, they're going to start using the term crime control. So we need to pay attention. We need to watch what's going on here because it's like they're switching it up on us, right? Gun control to crime control. Let's pay the criminals. Let's do this. Let's do that. If we can't stay relaxed because I guarantee you gun control is still on the agenda. It is still there. And if we can't look away for even a minute, right, they're going to keep us busy with what's going on in Afghanistan. They're going to keep us busy with stupid bull crap like this. and they still want your guns. They still want to come in and get your guns and control the guns, right? The only reason, and if you listen to the Cajun Cowboys show, Forgotten American, and he talks about it, down in Australia right now, the government is just all over the citizens of Australia, but about the shot, about the COVID vaccine, all this stuff. And the only reason they can do what they can do, they're locking people down in their houses, you name it. The only reason they can get away with what they're getting away with is because those people aren't armed. Okay, we have guns here, and your government wants your firearms, and they're going to get them one way or another. And so we have to pay attention to what's going on here and just kind of see through all this bull crap that they're throwing at us, paying people not to commit crimes. And we don't want gun control now. We want crime control. But we have to pay attention to this. But I've got another audio clip. It's actually by Coleon Noir, and it's a lot better than this one. It talks about the same thing, and I like his take on it. I just thought maybe I'd show you guys both sides. And so let's take a listen to Coleon.
So I just found out that San Francisco wants to use taxpayer dollars to beg criminals not to shoot people. I know. I thought it was a joke too when I saw it, but it's not.
So Sharon, talk to us a little bit how this plan is actually going to work.
Well, Chris and Marcus, good morning. Yes, the chosen ambassadors will be paid not to shoot people, believe it or not. The city is launching the pilot program in October, paying people $300 a month to not commit crimes. The goal is to reduce gun violence. It will start with 10 people who want to change their lives and become community ambassadors. Participants will have to pass an interview. The Human Rights Commission says the idea has been shown to be a cost-effective way to reduce gun crimes in other cities.
So this isn't about cash for criminals. This is about supporting and valuing people's time and expertise who can really help us think through how to address the problems and crisis of public safety.
The payments come in the form of gift cards, and the spending habits are tracked. Now, Oakland and Richmond have similar anti-violence programs.
I want you to understand that almost no one can get a concealed carry permit in San Francisco. You can't have more than 10 rounds in your gun. They have a universal background check, an assault weapons ban, and a whole host of other excessive gun control laws that, up until this point, have been so useless. San Francisco now has to pay criminals not to shoot people. I'm actually glad they're doing it for one reason and one reason only. It proves that everything the 2A community has been saying about gun control was right. The 2A community has always said that guns don't kill people, people kill people. And the anti-gun crowd would always crack jokes about us and call us crazy. Hell, I created a hashtag on Instagram called Still Waiting, where you post a picture of your gun and a watch to see how long it takes the gun to get up and start shooting people on its own. And I did this as a way to say, hey, stop focusing on the gun and focus on the criminals actually doing the shooting. So now I have to ask, if you have to create a program to pay the person not to shoot and not the gun, does this program not prove that guns don't kill people, people kill people? Another thing the 2A community has always said. Interesting
take. We always say, and that's exactly what we always say, right? Guns don't kill people, people kill people. And if you think about it, this program kind of points that out, right? They're not going after the gun, they're going after the criminals. I doubt they meant for it to look like that, but it kind of supports what we've been saying for a long time.
Said is that criminals will always find a way to get guns, regardless of the law, and the anti-gun crowd always pushed back and called us crazy. This program says it will offer high-risk individuals $300 a month to not shoot anyone. I'm going on a limb here, and I'm going to assume that these high-risk individuals are not legally able to own guns, especially after this quote. What we are talking about is saying we are going to invest resources in this 25-year-old who has 8 previous arrests, who is on parole, who is a proud member of a neighborhood clique, and who is not even seeking services, National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform Executive Director David Muhammad told the Examiner. It's just not a popular decision to make and may not be politically palatable, but that's what you have to do in order to reduce gun crime. If gun control laws were so effective, they should stop these high-risk individuals from getting their hands on guns, no? So paying them $300 to not shoot people pretty much acknowledges that these gun laws don't stop criminals from getting their hands on guns, because the only people who obey laws are law-abiding citizens. So in the end, gun laws make it harder and only take guns away from the law-abiding. See how that works? I don't care how you dress it up. I don't care how you intellectualize it. You're paying criminals to not shoot people. I'm 37 years old with more guns than food, and the government has never gave me money to not shoot people. Instead, they send me notices to pay my taxes. So imagine how a person who never shot anyone living in San Francisco feels, knowing that they're forced to pay the government, who then turns around and pays criminals to not shoot people. So if I don't pay my taxes, I go to jail. But if you're a repeat criminal with a high likelihood of shooting someone, they get paid $300. Please, someone make that make sense to me.
There you go. So I've got my fair share of firearms, and if I move down there, man, pay me. I won't pay me not to shoot people. I don't shoot people. I want a paycheck. And do I have to start shooting people so I can get a paycheck? I don't know, man. It's all backwards. Just like anything else, a lot of the other things that come from the left, it's all backwards. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out and where it goes. So I got one more thing on the agenda for tonight's podcast, and I'm looking at the time here, man, and good grief, this is going to be a short podcast, and I do apologize for that. But here we go. So I got to thinking the other day. So we talked, it was about a year and a half ago, when all the ammo was being bought and all the guns were being bought, and I got to thinking, this happens. It happens a lot, right? And when the firearms get bought up and the ammo gets bought up, it's not too much longer until a lot of the used guns and stuff come flooding back onto the market. And, I thought that would happen. And I don't think it's happened yet. Someone may argue with me. I've gone around. I've looked at some of the different stores and stuff locally. And, yeah, they've got some firearms. I don't know that a lot of guns have actually been flooding back onto the market. And I was scratching my head going, I wonder why. Because we had a lot of first-time, gun purchase, first-time buyers of firearms. In fact, I think it was last year, it was like 8 million of them, right? So you figure there should be a lot of stuff flooding back on the market. And especially considering a lot of those might have been, Democrats or those on the left, right, buying firearms for the first time because they saw what the government was and wasn't doing. They saw the riots, and they got a little scared because a lot of those riots took place in neighborhoods, and they stretched out into rural areas and whatnot. So people were getting nervous, and they decided to get a firearm and get some ammo and get some training. Well, the fact that those haven't come flooding back onto the market yet, and that those people would still rather have a firearm than the money they spent on that firearm, makes me think that, hey, first of all, we know this is far from over. Things haven't settled down yet. People are still nervous. People are still uptight, right? They're waiting for something to happen. And you can look at it and keep your fingers crossed. I don't have any evidence of this necessarily. It's just my thoughts, right? That's what this podcast is mostly, is of my rambling thoughts. But you have these people on the left that bought these firearms, and they haven't gotten rid of them. So they either know what's coming, or they went, hey, I've been lied to about the Second Amendment. I've been lied to about firearms. Firearms aren't necessarily that bad. Do we possibly have some people on our side? Do we possibly have some people on our side that now that are maybe one-issue voters, right? One-issue voters, and maybe they're going to be on our side for the Second Amendment. Maybe they're going to be on our side for firearms. Did they realize that they were lied to? They realize that carrying a firearm actually empowers you, that this gun is not going to go out and shoot people on its own, that a person can carry it responsibly and can enjoy shooting it. Have they found and experienced the same joy that you and me do as we go to the range, or as we take a training class, or as we buy a gun, or as we buy more ammo? Have they experienced that? Did we get them to cross over? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but fingers crossed. I do think that we got a lot of people from the left over here now, and I think that they do see firearms as a good thing, and it's not the big scary thing that the left would typically make it out to be. And I think you can see that as the left reacts. I think that they have actually realized that a lot of their voting pool, right, has decided that they like firearms. They aren't worried about firearms. They aren't. I just don't think they have the support that they thought they would have. And it's quite interesting because they caused this, they bring this on themselves. They're the ones that caused the riots. They're the one that caused mayhem. They're the ones that did this. are they their own worst enemy? I believe that they are. I believe they are their own worst enemy. So we need to welcome those new, and I mention it all the time, and I'm sincere. We need to welcome those first-time gun owners, those people that are new. Maybe they've bought the gun, they've had it for a year, and they haven't actually got out and shot it yet. I don't care. I don't care what they identify as gender-wise. I don't care if they're in the LGBTQ community. I don't care if they're on the left. Take them out, invite them out, show them how to use the gun. None of that other stuff matters. Show them how to use the gun, show them how to safely use the gun, and welcome them into our community, to the firearms community, to the shooting community. Show them what a great place it is, right? That's what we need to be doing. But I think it's about time for me to wrap this up. I will jump on there and say, hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. I do appreciate it. I know I haven't been on YouTube for just a little while. I will get back up on YouTube, I promise. I just had a lot of things going on here. I was really concentrating on the Patreon. So if you enjoyed this program, let your friends and family and neighbors know. Share it on social media. I beg of you, please share this on social media. You can grab the podcast link from wherever you listen to the podcast. Share it on social media. That is one of the number one things that you can do. Just share the podcast with your friends and family. You can find it on Stitcher. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on iTunes, or if there even isn't iTunes anymore, I don't even know. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find it. If not, let me know and I will take care of that. I will rectify that situation immediately. If you got any questions or comments, you can call, you can text me, area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. Super excited. The best concealed carry season is around the corner, and that is winter. That is hoodie weather. That is sweatshirt weather. That is easy to conceal carry a handgun weather. I absolutely love this time of year. The cooler nights, the shorter days. Love it. I'm not going to complain at all. And I will remind you that if you want a little more, I mentioned this a few weeks back, that I did say it'll be official by the time this goes. The Patreon will be up and running. In fact, I think it's up and running now. I just haven't advertised it yet. If you get value from the show and you want a little more, if you want some more videos, some how-to instructional videos, if you want an extra podcast, definitely, I'd love for you to join our Patreon community for the Patriot Defense Podcast Show. That would be absolutely fantastic. $5 a month. It's cheap. $5 a month. What is that? A coffee? That's an energy drink. Something like that. $5 a month. That is it. And if you don't like it, you can get on there and you can cancel anytime. If you join and you go, this is bullcrap, he's not providing, or I don't need to know this stuff, you can always just cancel anytime. But if you want to jump on there and join that, I would sure appreciate that. I hope to see you over there. And until then, you folks have a great week. And I will throw out here, I have to go pace for my brother. He's running a race this weekend. And so I'm going to try to get an early podcast out, or it might be a really late one. But I will get something out this weekend, I promise. We will get it on the board, get it up there. And until then, you guys have a great week and stay safe. Thanks. Bye.